Hey folks, welcome back. In today's adventure, we're going to look at how to do a level 5 step sum puzzle. And real quick, if you're interested in these puzzles and want to know a little bit more, here's what the book looks like. Here's the back cover, the spine. Nobody cares about the spine, but hey, at least it's not spineless. And here's the amazing front cover. This is what's called a level 4. These are the level 3s. And the ones that we're going to be looking at today, not these two specific puzzles, but this is what a level 5 looks like. And so we'll flip back there now. I'm going to show you how to solve this. So it's got cross math in it. So like Sudoku, you have a grid, and this is the numbers 1 through 15. So you have to put all the different numbers in. You can't reuse any numbers. It's got to be, different numbers in every square. But then, unlike Sudoku, there's math, everybody's favorite subject. So this has to add up to this, and this has to add up to this, all the way down, and then this has to add up to this. You get the point, okay? So let's just get right into it. So you may notice in this puzzle that there's a couple when you start out that are really easy. Like, see, this only has one square to go. This is obviously a 4, so we just do that. And folks, I'm just using Excel to demonstrate the puzzles. It's a puzzle book. I mean, it's a piece of paper, obviously, that you're going to be writing on. But I'm just using Excel just because it's a lot neater than my handwriting. And then over here, too, what would this be? See, if it has to be 29 and you've already got 15, then this would automatically be 14. So now, those are the two easy ones, after the 5 numbers that we start you off with, okay? These two are pretty easy to figure out, but now what? Now, where do we go from here? What I like to do, I like to start working in the middle, and for some reason, I just like doing these two squares next. And you have to do them together, and you'll see why in a minute, but let me just color code them so we can kind of see what we're looking at. What I like to do is, okay, so here, this column has to equal 28, but we've already got a 4 and we've already got a 5. So we only have 19 to go. So what are all the combinations that we can use that in this puzzle will fly? Well, can we use 1 and 18? No, because it doesn't go up to 18. The lowest number we could use, the biggest number that we can use is a 15. But see, the 15's already used. So we can't do a 3 and a 15, or excuse me, we can't do a 4 and a 15 here and here because we already have a 4, we already have a 15. So what about a 5 and a 14? Well, again, both of those are being used, so we can't do that. Well, what about a 6 and a 13? Well, now that we can do. Let me just make a note, okay? Maybe you'll use like the book or a, sticky note or write it on like the dog's forehead. But anyway, your dog has a forehead? It should have fur. Dave, could you get back to this? I will, okay. Yeah, and then also don't forget, if this is 6 and 13, that's not the same thing as this being 13 and 6. So let's write that other combination down too. Okay. Now what about 7 and 12? Would that work? Yeah, I don't see any 7s and 12s. I mean, it might work. So let's do that. Let's do 7 and 12. We'll just make a note of it right now. And we'll say 12 and 7. Because you have to think about that too. And what about 8 and 11? We've got an 8. We've already got an 8. Well, what about 9 and 10? Well, we already have the 9. So basically, the only combinations for making 19 are these right here. So why don't we just rip through it and see what happens? So if I put a 6 here and a 13, well, we already did the math, and so now we don't have any numbers that are on here twice, and we already know that that equals 28, so we don't have to do that. But what happens when we try to fill in, say, this row? Like, we could do this one right now because it's only missing 1, or we could do this one because it's only missing 1. But let's try to do the 40. So here we have 8 and 13, which makes 21. You see all the math involved. This is good for kids that want to learn math. Okay, so here's 21, and 21 and 14 makes what? 35. So, wait, did I get that right? Yeah. Okay, so 8 and 13 is 21, that's 35. So we'll put a 5 here. Okay, so how does that look? Well, it looks good so far, except now we have a 5 and a 5. See, that's a no-no in this game, so you can't do it. So you can't have two 5s. All right, back to the drawing board. Well, let's go around this way. So far, 13 hasn't been so lucky for us. I mean, it has to go somewhere, it's just not here. Okay, so let's try that and see what happens. Okay, so we know it'll equal 28. We're good. We haven't repeated anything. Well, what about this line? Well, what's 8 and 16? 14. And what's 14 and 14? 28. So what's 40 minus 28? Piece of cake. That's 12. All right. How are we looking so far? Well, what happens when we do this column? So we have a huge problem because it has a total 17 and we're already over that because we're at 21. It's too much. You know, unfortunately, we can't put a -4. That's only in the Bizarro world version of step sums. Okay, anyway, so let's roll this back. So a pencil with an eraser is kind of nice to have. All right, let's try 12 and 7 and see what happens here. Okay, so we got our 12 and 7. Okay, so far so good. Now, if we go through here, so we've got 8 and 7 makes 15, and 14 makes 29, so we can put an 11 here, right? Okay. And now when we go this way, we're still over 17. So that's not going to work. But here's the good news, and it is good news. The good news is that this video will be over at some point. No, just kidding. That would be horrible news. We know that 7 and 12 is the only remaining combination. It has to be the right one. Mathematically, it'd be impossible for this to not work. Okay. So here we have it. We know that that works because we've eliminated every other possibility. So now let's go through here. So we've got 8 and 12 makes 20. Plus 14 makes 34. 40 minus 34 is 6. Finally, we have a number here that makes it still less than 17 and isn't being used on the board. Eureka! Took us about 3 weeks to get here, but hey, next time we'll take the train. So now we've got 9 and 6 makes 15. Well, we have 17, so this bad boy must be a 2. Okay, now, what's the next thing that we should do? Well, this should be really easy to figure out what goes in this box. So we've got 7 and 9 is 16. 27 minus 16 is, anybody in the audience? 11. Right, it's 11. That's somebody that sounds just like me said that. Okay, so now we have that. So now, we can get rid of this. So now what are we looking at? What are we doing? So all we have left are the 3 corners. The 3 corners of our thing that looks like a really bad representation of a stealth fighter jet. Okay. Or a moth that had a tail cut off with pinking shears. I digress. What I like to do here now, I'm done doing a lot of math, okay? I have to, regenerate some brain cells, and that's going to take a while. Gonna have to watch a lot of Netflix to make that happen. So yeah, they're not sponsoring this. Okay, so what I like to do now is I like to figure out just what are the numbers that are missing, because this makes life a lot easier. So I'm gonna start off, I don't see a 1. So I'm just gonna kind of track that. So I don't see a 1. Let's see, I see a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8 and a 9, and I don't see a 10. Do you guys see a 10? I don't see a 10. Now I see a 10. And what else? Oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be over here. And then I see 11, 12. Oh, there's no 13. Of course, it's a 13. Okay. So no 13. Yeah, 13 is just a prime number. Okay, here's what I do at this point. Let's make it easy. Instead of trying to do all this like math and quantum mechanics and see, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a guy trying to survive this video. So here's what I do. Let's take the bottom row. This is going to be simple. 5 and 2 is 7, and 15 is 22. Now, 36 minus 22 makes 14. Do you see any 2 of these that when you add them together it makes 14? I told you this is easy. It's not the 10 because there's no 4. But the 1 and the 13, they totally make 14. The only question is, do I put the 1 here, or do I put the 1 here? Well, there's an easy way to do this. If we know that this has to be 1 and 13, and this has to be 1 and 13, and this can't be 1 and 13, this has to be a 10. There's just no other possibility. So, what that means, my friends, is that now to figure out which one this is and which one this is, we just add up this row. 10 and 3 is 13, plus 11, 24, plus 8, 32. 45 minus 32, it's not 1, it's 13. Finally 13. Oh, and I'll tell you why that's blue in a minute. And then there's 1. Okay. So, there, we've solved it. It's really that simple. It wasn't that simple. It was that simple. Okay. The reason why this is blue, let me roll these guys back to white. Okay, and let me undo these. Sorry guys, you're getting deleted. Your only crime was existing. Kind of like snakes, you know. They showed up one day, nobody liked them. Okay. You know, just grow some legs, we'll like you. Maybe some hair on your head. Okay. All right. But bikers that have snake tattoos that, you know, you can beat me up, then snakes are fine. They're wonderful. Okay. So now, see here in this corner, all right, let's delete that. When you first get to the level 5 puzzles, they look like this. And like the other puzzles in the book, they all have solutions. But what's special about the level 5, because they're a little more challenging, there's a second copy of this puzzle just like this, with the exception of it has this filled in for you. It's called a hint. Now, what you can do is you can do all there's 32 of these puzzles in the book. Well, there's actually really 64 if you think about it. You could do the second group of 32 that has this extra hint to get you started. Do all those and get good at them, and then when you're, you know, really want more of a challenge, you know, then you can go back and do the ones that don't have them. So that's how I would approach it, but you do what you want, you know. And like I said, I'll leave a link to the book down in the description. And this was the longest video ever. You should probably get college credit for having watched this, but since we can't really do that here, you know, and I don't know if you were really watching it. But anyway, so that's it for now. I hope my jokes weren't too horrible. What I'm striving for is just horrible enough. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or anything, or more material for me, more jokes, please put those in the comments. We could really use your help. All right, well, thanks for calling. We'll get back to you. Bye-bye.